they used to keep pushing like, give me some money from your traditional budget, give me some money on digital from your traditional budget. And but now I think it's ulta, right? I mean, now if you compare it, now everyone's like, okay, give us some money from your digital budget. Any marketer you meet will always turn around and tell you, just keep it as simple as possible, and then add layers of personalization, add layers of customization, but keep the core simple. The more people know about the product, so when they know about the product, what happens then is every time they have a need for the product, they would like to use it. Large production houses in India or across the world pump in so much money in marketing, or pump in so much money in building building promotions for their movies, but the only ones that they do well have some really great storylines.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Northeast Seauton's School of Purpose. I'm your host, Mansi, and this is where we dive deep into the minds of leaders who are shaping industries, redefining storytelling, and pushing the boundaries of innovation. Today's guest is really special. His career reads like a masterclass in marketing and brand building. From being one of Google India's first 20 employees to leading global campaigns with Lionel Messi, and now revolutionizing audio storytelling at Pocket FM. Vineet Singh is a marketing powerhouse who's built brands, secured legendary partnerships, and crafted stories that have reached millions. In this conversation, we'll explore the secrets behind campaigns that resonate across cultures, the evolving landscape of digital storytelling, and even the pressures of handling a PR crisis. Plus, we'll wrap up with a fun rapid fire round to really get to know the man behind the marketing magic. So, without any further delay, let's dive in. Hi, Vineet. Thank you so much for coming on School of Purpose. We are really excited to have you here and looking forward to all your insights and all your comments on the landscape. So, Vineet, just to begin with, you've worked with giants like Google, Byju's, and now Pocket FM. And honestly, your resume sounds like as if it should have its own IMDb page, right? Across this 20-year journey, and I'm sure it has been an incredible journey, what's been your biggest pinch me moment? You know, that one time you thought, wow, I can't believe I do this for a living.
First of all, thank you, Mansi. It's great meeting you after so many years. For people listening in, I think Mansi and me have known each other for, I don't know, God, how many years now. I think we both worked at Google at the same point of time, and have some awesome memories from Google. So great connecting, and I've watched and heard into a couple of your podcasts, and I've found them really interesting. I'm really honored to be here. Not just as a friend, but also as someone who can who's good enough to come and give some amount of experience sharing on this podcast. I think it's funny. Like I can go back and say joining Google was one of the pinch me moments, but at that point of time, you didn't realize how big Google was, right? Especially even for people like us who joined that company. While we knew what Google was and it was big, but we didn't expect it to be as big as it became in the next few years that we were there. And now, I mean, what it is. I think pinch me moment for me, if you ask me, have been many. I mean, I'm working with at an extremely young age, starting to work with brands like, during my agency days, working with brands like Nestle, working with legends in the industry like Rashi Goel, and a few others, and then going into becoming one of the youngest people to be leading marketing for a real estate company as large as Embassy, and obviously first CMO for WeWork India, and then on the campaign side, working with at Byju's, working with massive projects like the BCCI, the Indian cricket team, working with projects with FIFA and a couple of other global brand ambassadors. I think there's been many pinch me moments where I was like, hey, listen, what am I doing here? And I suffer from a little bit of an imposter syndrome. So I'm like, okay, do I deserve to be here? But I think overall I've just been lucky to be blessed with a lot of people and friends like you who've helped me build my career to what I've become, and a lot of mentors from across the industry who've shaped my career in the way they have. I think if you ask me, actual pinch me moment would be, working with a lot of greats across the advertising and marketing world, and having them on my having their numbers on my phone to just be able to call them to discuss, or even have an opportunity to share ideas with them. I think that would be the biggest pinch me moment, because you don't get access to these legends, and um, just being able to do that is fascinating. So I know, not very direct answer to what my pinch me moment was, but I think I'm just honestly honored and humbled to be in a place where I've been able to do what I've been able to do. So yeah.
How wonderful, Vineet. And you said you were lucky and you're blessed, but I really believe that the harder you work, the luckier you get. You're right. We've known each other for almost half our age. And let's not reveal what our ages are, but it has been wonderful. It has been wonderful to see your growth, see your path, and you really should not be suffering from the imposter syndrome. And you're right. While we ask these questions, that what is your biggest pinch me? Life is a series of pinch me moments, right? It is not one, and it is not end all. There are so many moments where you just feel, oh wow, I did not feel my life would take this turn. And one thing which I completely resonate with, we didn't know what we were getting into when we joined Google, right? It hit us later. In retrospect, you realize, oh wow, we were a part of something so big. And I think at that time we were just a bunch of recently out of college kids, and
Yeah.
just in it for the joyride, in it for the fun. But yeah, what a ride it's been. So
Yeah,
just
and sorry, fun story
yeah,
from
go
Google
ahead.
days is when I actually, I remember when I called my parents and told them I've got through Google, and I had some massive rounds of interviews, and I remember I was being flown
Yeah,
in Hyderabad to do my interviews, because I had the first 3 or 4 months I spent in the Hyderabad office before I moved to Delhi, and
yeah,
I think and they were like, "What is this company that's called which has such a weird name?" Right? And Google. I mean, obviously now everyone is like, "Wow,
yeah,
what you had a great experience, 7 years, all of that." But like at that point of time, I was like, "This company doesn't even have like," because everyone of our relatives or people, and especially because I come from a really small town, right? So
yeah,
people there, for them it was either Tata's or Reliance and stuff like that,
yeah,
right? Really
yeah.
proper names. What the hell was Google?
It
Um,
was yellow pages for the generation,
yeah.
like an online yellow
So
pages. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you're right. We really didn't know what we're getting into. I mean, obviously, a couple of us, most of us knew that it was big, but obviously, um, when you join in and then you go through that journey, you realize how big that company became in the next few years, and what it was able to do and change the world. So yeah, we're honestly pretty lucky to be there at the right time.
yeah, we were. And you're right, people did not know what Google was. It was just a search bar for most, like, oh, there's something which helps us now research things, and, news will come up. I remember like that. And you were a part of its foundational journey, right? If I'm not wrong, you were one of its first 20 employees in Google India. So looking back, Vineet, what were the defining challenges of marketing in a digital world that was just taking shape? You're right. You were lucky enough to be a part of an evolving, pivoting world, while it was just sort of moving. But how do you compare that to today's landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different, right? I think right. You see, in the beginning, it was. Um, I think 2006, 2007, right, we can keep, I mean, internet was there and we were all using the internet pretty much um, every day of our lives. But I think from an advertising perspective, it hadn't clicked in that well as at that point of time, right? And while Unilever globally was spending a lot of money on digital platforms, in India, they were not hardly spending anything on digital, right? Because
Yeah.
for the longest time, every like uh, digital or the power of the internet always stayed with tier one, right? And obviously our penetration before Geo and after Geo is there's a stark difference, right? When obviously you don't have that kind of penetration, why would advertisers spend money on you? Because for them it was, and especially large companies from an FMCG or auto standpoint, they were looking at more scale, right? And that's what they wanted to do. So if the penetration, if the medium wasn't reaching the audience, why would they spend money on it? So I think the bigger challenge at that point of time was just getting people to understand why digital is going to shape the next few years in advertising, and if you jumped on it right in the beginning, this could land up being, you'd be able to capturing this entire moment of how you could build that out, right? And this was not just for companies like company FMCG or CPG or auto, but also let's call it traditional businesses or even traditional career paths like politics for that, and even people in the government wanted to understand how digital used to work, or how it could shape differently in reaching the right audience at the right time. And so a couple of people jumped on that bandwagon early, but a lot of them were still very, very circumspect about what this medium is going to do, how it's going to reach the right people, is it the right medium to spend money. Because I remember going into meetings with some senior leaders, and obviously from my team as well, and the question that they used to be asked a lot is like, they used to keep pushing like, give me some money from your traditional budget, give me some money on digital from a traditional budget. And but now I think it's ulta, right? I mean, now if you compare it, now everyone's like, okay, give us some money from your digital budget. And also, and like I said, I think geo's got a huge role to play in this, right? Because the penetration, when the medium starts reaching people, then you cannot have marketers or advertising or brands not spending money on that medium. Because if that medium is the easiest way and the quickest way and the most trackable way of reaching people, you'd be an idiot to not be on that medium and spending any kind of money. That could be a rupee, or that could be $1,000, right? But spending that is important. So I think the difference, obviously, I feel is the medium reach. So that time it wasn't like brands weren't open to digital. They were open to digital, but they were not open to spending money on digital because they didn't think that the medium was reaching enough people to be spending money on it. And that's why TV was a regular medium, right? And that's why you spent all entire CPG auto money used to go on India cricket matches and all of that, because they knew that would give them huge scale from a marketing perspective. So yeah, that's essentially, I feel that's what the difference was.
Yeah, and I really feel, it just brings back bouts of nostalgia, especially with YouTube, right? It was just a video platform. And then when other ad formats came in, YouTube ads came in, it just sort of, burst into the landscape, I think, changing everything. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the penetration of the medium, and it happened almost overnight, right? It was from like almost to baseline to it just skyrocketed. And it was such a fascinating time to be a part of that world. As you've said, right, you worked in industries as diverse as tech, education, and now it's entertainment. And I wouldn't be off the mark when I say that, you have literally moved from search engines to classrooms to earbuds. So I'm curious to know, how do you adapt your marketing playbook when the audience, product, and expectations are so drastically different and diverse?
That's a great question. And also I went and did WeWork and B2B in the middle. So a lot of people also say, like, how did you do it? So it was about searching, and then how you would work and where you would work, and then to now entertaining people. But I'll tell you what, right? I've been a big believer, and one of the reasons why I really wanted to take the WeWork assignment also was that I wanted to understand this entire concept of B2B. And I was like, hey, listen, what is this animal and why is it so different in the marketing world, right? Because I mean, I know it doesn't happen. I think it happens even now. A lot of B2B people stick to B2B, and then B2C stick to B2C. And even if you go to LinkedIn and look for marketing jobs, it'll be defined 10 years of experience with B2B or 10 years experience with B2C or any of that, right? My challenge with that was, and I'm glad that I overcame the challenge in learning, was that I never thought it was different, right? What is different, right? And maybe the metrics that you're tracking or what you're selling is going to be different. But at the end of the day, you're selling to humans, right? Be it businesses or customers, right? At the end of the day, you're selling to people who are making decisions for businesses, or you're making people who are making decisions for themselves. You're either selling a large good, like a real estate apartment, which is maybe worth 7 crores, 10 crores, or a toothpaste, which could be 20 rupees. But at the end of the day, your marketing isn't defined by what you are selling, but it's more defined by what the audience need is for that product, right? So if Mansi needs a particular toothpaste, and she's going to be using that every day, I'm going to sell it to her, personalized to her based on her need. And if she needs a apartment, she's buying a 3 BHK, 4 BHK, 7 crores, 8 crores, 10 crores, I'll be selling an apartment to her based on personalized to her need. So for me, I didn't think B2B or B2C was madly different. Yes, the metrics that you were tracking was different. The the targets were different. The transactions that you wanted to optimize from were different. But I think overall the concept of marketing didn't change, right? The concept of storytelling didn't change. The concept of building a brand and making it more personalized to the ecosystem that you're selling to didn't change. So to answer your question is, for me, one of the things that has worked is identifying the need of your product, and then customizing your campaigns based on that, right? And if you're able to do that, you're able to create great campaigns, you're able to sell well, and you're able to also create enough and good noise for your brand, because you're then targeting that need, and specifically that need for your product. So that's, if you have that singular learning, I think that fits to any kind of product you want to sell or any kind of brand you want to sell. So customize, personalize it to the needs of the customer, hear what the needs of the customer are, and then just build your marketing or your branding campaign around that.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it over here, right? At the heart of it, whether it's B2B, it's B2C, it's still people. And if you sort of nail that, then marketing, I mean, irrespective of which field you're looking at, is basically storytelling with a budget, deadlines, and an occasional crisis, I'm sure. But eventually, it is just storytelling. So I completely understand where you say that, if you understand the core of it all, it'll be pretty much, I think, smooth sailing.
And there shouldn't be so much of, especially in a country like India where people are so diverse, right? You can't put your campaigns in any buckets. You have to unify. See, like I said, I mean, the need for a toothpaste in the south of the country versus the north of the country is exactly the same, right? It's cleaning teeth. You can't complicate it. You can't complicate it more than that. But what you can do is you can personalize it based on which part of the country you're marketing to. But you're not gonna be forcing a new need for a toothpaste, because when you start doing that, you want to start creating complexities, and that's when the challenge starts. And that's why I think keeping it, every time any marketer you meet will always turn around and tell you, just keep it as simple as possible, and then add layers of personalization, add layers of customization, but keep the core simple. If you keep the core simple, there's no way that you're not going to strike a chord with the market, be it B2B, B2C, or any other brand or product that you sell.
Yeah, and I absolutely feel that the key here is to be solution oriented, not problem oriented. I think sometimes what happens is that we start targeting or focusing on the problem so much. We are sort of a problem looking for a solution, and while it should be the other way around, right? There should be basically, there should be a solution, and then you need to sort of find the problem. So, Vineet, in PR, crisis is like a plot twist in a thriller. You can't predict it, but you better have a great ending planned. And speaking of which, at Byju's, you've led massive campaigns, including partnerships with the FIFA World Cup and Messi. What's the secret behind building a campaign that isn't just big, but transcends borders and also sticks in people's minds, according to you?
It's a great question, and I'm glad. I know why you said crisis and then said my experience with Byju. I think the world knows about it. But yeah, we'll deep dive more into that piece. But I think it's again it's a simple thing, right? And just taking away from the last answer as well, I think globally also, I think it's all about selling the first thing first is understanding what you want to sell and what are the need for that in the market, and then adapt it to any scale across the world. If that's FIFA, which was more, at Byju's, and let's take the example for Byju's, right? And that'll be easier to explain. At Byju's, the product was very simple, right? It was great quality education across anywhere in the world. Now, that meant that if you were using a Byju's product, you would be learning extremely difficult concepts with varied degrees of ease, right? And that product, and then you had multiple brands, right? You had Osmo, you had Tinker. So Osmo was making products like Lego and games like that, which could help aid with teaching. You had Tinker, which used to use games to teach you coding. And then Byju as a product which had this whole video learning capsule and model. So everything was about making learning easy or making you fall in love with learning, right? It was making learning fun across all brands. So that essentially was the core product of Byju, right? And that's what you wanted to sell. Now, for us, all our partnerships were most of our partnerships that we did, or most of the associations we did, was to have an create a noise at scale. So, for example, the FIFA or the BCCI partnership in India was to create the noise at scale. So, not more and more people know about the product. The logic is simple, right? The more people know about the product, so when they know about the product, what happens then is every time they have a need for the product, they would like to use it. And in India, for example, education is a great need, right? Big need. So tomorrow, and I'll give an example. Everyone who loves a BMW doesn't necessarily have the money to buy a BMW, right? But they know a BMW. They know about it. So if they know about it, when they have the money to buy it, BMW is going to be the first car they're going to think of because they love the brand. Same thing with Byju's, right? What you wanted to do was like, hey, listen, everyone should know in India about this education company called Byju's. So when their kids or they want to prepare and they want to give them the best of education, they would think of Byju's. So all the partnerships that we did from a brand perspective was to create a known brand at scale across countries. And like BCCI with India, FIFA with we did FIFA for US specifically because one of the most the country that watches FIFA World Cup the most, one of them is the USA, and we were building the brand in USA. We obviously looked at Messi because of our LATAM presence, and also what he as kind of a global icon that he was. We used Virat for, I think, great learning as a brand. So the whole idea, like, to answer your question, was the Byju's wasn't about just selling the product. It was also about getting the brand known, because it was an easy, see, education is an easy product to sell, because there are only two things that you worry a lot about: education and money. Because they're like, oh, am I educated enough to make money? And if I'm so a lot of people equate education and money together, right? If you're educated enough, then you'll get money. You'll make money. If you do good in education, you'll make money. And that's, I mean, if you look at, I mean, all of us were told when we were kids, right? Agar padhoge likhoge to banoge nawab, खेलोगे कूदोगे तो बनोगे खराब. That's exactly what I was told. So, so I think the education bit has always been tight, right? So all we had to do was just get the brand known. So our partnerships at Byju's was not really sales led. It was more brand led, because of the fact that you wanted more and more people to know. And once they knew about it, if they had the need for education, they would buy the product, because that's they felt this was a one of a kind thing, e-learning, ed tech, all of that, right? So our partnerships, like I said, was across the world, was more derived through branding. So overall, if you ask me what's an insight from this, is it all depends on what your partnerships or associations will all depend on what you want to deliver in the end. If it's conversions and if it's just hardcore sale, you may be doing a different kind of partnership, rather than spending money on a platform like FIFA or with BCCI. A large partnership like that is more from an brand awareness kind of point of view, and getting more and more people to know about your brand.
Sorry, I lost a bit of time. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll edit this out. Okay. So, yeah, I think those were some great insights. And you're right? We talked about crisis, and then we talked about this big campaign. And most big campaigns, do come with their moments of nervous laughter and like a lot of things which potentially do go wrong. And just on that, because we are talking about this campaign, and basically, while I said, right, it's natural to dread a PR crisis, I think sometimes inwardly, I think you also feel like, it'll be challenging to see what can be done about that PR crisis. And reflecting on that, what are your thoughts on the whole Messi brand ambassador reveal during layoffs at Byju's? What was the most critical lesson you learned during that time about timing and transparency?
Yeah, I think see, I'll tell you what, right? Then I'll start with saying marketers shouldn't be dreading crisis. I mean, if it's going to happen, you should be prepared for it. Learn from it, and then go forward to figure out a way to get out of it. I mean, if you start dreading crisis, or you dread anything in life, if you're not prepared for it, then you're essentially have shockwaves coming your way, and you'll have issues. But I think dreading is not the word, but yeah, being prepared is important. The exact campaign that you spoke about, I think learning is simple, right? I think the Messi campaign, I've spoken about this earlier, was um, it was timed. The announcement was timed very incorrectly, but the announcement was timed because that was the deal that was cracked, right? It had to be announced around FIFA. Obviously, a large deal like Messi is not cracked in a day. I think it took us almost a year to crack that deal. So when it was announced, was obviously around a certain set of layoffs, and it obviously was extremely badly timed, right? People felt that, hey, listen, because it's easy for people. Why should people care that this deal is taken a year or 5 years or 10 years, right? I mean, for them, you are announcing layoffs here and you're announcing a brand ambassador here. So I mean, come on. So I think yeah, timing was something that I felt that could have been different. But I also feel, I think the bigger piece that we missed out on, and something that we all wanted to do, and at some point I think we missed out on doing, was being transparent with people. I think if we were transparent with people, people would have understood and been more forgiving about this, right? Because if we had gone out pretty say, and hey, listen, yes, this is an announcement, but this is an announcement that has been timed because how the deal was constructed about a year and a half back. And obviously there was a lot of pain about losing friends and having their jobs, have them losing their jobs. But if we had been honest with even them, right, and gone and told them, been transparent with them, saying, hey, listen, because I feel the most amount of hurt would have been caused to people who lost their job, right? They'd be like, hey, listen, you're getting someone like Messi on board and you're asking me to quit. So I think being transparent with them, being open with them, and just going and saying, hey, listen, this is what it is, and we sincerely apologize. I think that essentially was missing. I think branding and marketing is not just about how you communicate to external people, but also how you communicate to internal people, and especially in crisis. I think being open with people who are a part of your company, who are building your company, is extremely important while facing any kind of crisis. And the reason that is because they have given their blood and sweat for years to build a company where they're working, and I'm sure they'll understand when a crisis is the stage, and a company has to take a hard decision. They'd be more than happy to understand. So I think a crisis in today's world, I think, is not just about how we communicate externally or what perception of the brand we create externally, but I think it's more important. I feel it's really more important to address that crisis internally. And it's not just layoffs. I mean, tomorrow, let's say a brand goes out and makes an error of judgment in putting a campaign out which is extremely offensive to, let's say a large amount of people. I think the first thing that you should go about and do is talk to your everyone internally who works for your company, and tell them what happened and what went wrong. Apologize to them so that they can then become brand ambassadors to be able to tell people, what your story is, and then have obviously communicated externally, and whatever that error is for. I mean, we're talking about a fictional story, but I think it's very important to be respecting, from a crisis perspective, respecting everyone who works with you day in and day out, to keep them updated, be transparent about it, and then externally communicate and be transparent as well. So my learning was transparency for sure. Timing, yes. I mean, see, if you ask me, would you have changed the timing? Yes. Right now, in hindsight, yes. Obviously, I would have changed the timing. Did I have a choice at that point of time? No, I didn't have a choice. Did we debate about changing the timing? Yes, we obviously did. But it like I said, it wasn't really in our control. There were also a decision beyond my paycheck. So that's something that that's what it was. But learning was transparency. We should have been a lot more open externally and internally, and spoken very frankly about it. I mean, people make mistakes, and I think also I know for a fact that people forgive also. So you have brands who've gone through similar or even harder crisis, and still will be the most loved brand, one of the most loved brands in the country. because they were pretty honest and open about what happened, why it happened, and moved on from there. So yeah.
I think that was a beautiful and very insightful answer, Vineet, because I really feel it's pivotal to have your internal people have your back as well, right? It's like in any relationship. It's not just personal. Like in personal relationships, we say communication is the key and open communication. I think it's equally important because what you said was invaluable, right? If you have internal communication, if you have open internal communication, then your team or your employees as well can have your back when they are talking about the crisis, and crises will happen, right? There is no end.
Yeah.
It is not the first, it will not be the last, so that is constant. But how I think your internal support can really become your backbone, I think that is something which is a big takeaway. And I feel that is why we also talk about culture in a place, organizational development in a place, because that is gaining so much traction in these days. So I feel thank you so much for that. I think this gives me a lot of food for thought, because not being communicative with your own people, even if it's about hard decisions like layoffs, or even if it's about hard decisions that may not make them happy, I think eventually people appreciate your honesty. And you're
Yeah.
right, in hindsight, हिंदी में कहते हैं ना कि हाइंडसाइट में तो आप जग जीत लोगे. That is the beautiful thing about hindsight. But there are so many lessons to be learned when when these things happen, and I think they have a much larger impact on your future if you had not made that mistake, I think, going forward. Coming from moments of crisis, let's come to your current workplace. So I really believe that audio is the last frontier of digital entertainment, because no one has time to watch, but everyone has time to listen. And I feel Pocket FM is essentially Netflix for your ears. And you have worked in video-driven marketing for so long. What drew you to audio storytelling? And what do you think is about what do you think about audio storytelling resonates deeply with today's audience?
So to begin with, I think, see, I've always tried to do something different with my next role. After Google, it was working with advertising. So I did Publicis. After Publicis, I obviously went to, like I said, real estate, WeWork, Embassy Group. And then after that, I wanted to really figure out, okay, what the hell is EdTech? Everyone was talking about it. And that's when Byju's happened. And then after Byju's, I really wanted to get into entertainment and content. And the reason was because I feel it's it's a beautiful industry, right? Something that, I mean, friends like you who know that I'm extremely obsessed with content and entertainment. So it's something that's fascinated me for the longest period of time, and I really wanted to work in this industry and figure out how this works. And then while I was discussing my next stint, I came across Pocket FM, and an opportunity came across, and we started speaking. And for me, audio entertainment was extremely exciting and interesting, right? So I was like, hey, listen, if I go with the history of what I've done in my last so many years of my career, I've already picked something which was a little different from what the world wanted to do. So why should I pick something which is traditional entertainment or traditional media and pick up something which is a new age and something which has not been done before? So that's how obviously things worked out with Pocket FM, and I was lucky enough to join the team. But I think what I think also drew me to audio storytelling is the concept has always existed, right? And I know you're calling it the last frontier in terms of digital entertainment, but if you go back, I think it was also the first frontier of entertainment, right? I mean, if you go back to your childhood, the stories that you remember is your grandmom or your parents, or telling you stories and you visualizing them. And that's what you did. You weren't listening to the story with a screen in front of you. You were just sitting there and listening to the stories, and then you build your world around those stories. And I think
we
audio
had a
story
version of Birbal, and everybody,
exactly.
like, we had specific versions of the stories we were listening
Exactly.
to.
And your Birbal would be very different from my Birbal, right? And your
Yeah.
Birbal may be 6 feet 4 inch. I don't know, my Birbal would be
Aspirational.
the scout guy, whatever, right? So essentially, that was something. It's actually something that's always stuck to us. And if you ask me, I mean, one of the stories, I mean, I watch so much content and we all consume so much content, but some stories that have already stuck to you are those stories that you listen to in the childhood and you're never going to forget, right? So I think that was one. So then I will tell you another version of audio storytelling that used to happen which a lot say, if you look at the Mahabharata and Ramayana, there were cassettes made out of it, right? And people used to just
Yeah.
listen on drive. Um, the Indian film industry has actually experimented with audio series as, I think, in the 90s, if you remember, they used to make these cassettes which had
Yes.
dialogues and almost the complete storyline with the
Yeah.
songs.
Yeah.
So, right, so you were still, so audio storytelling, especially in the Indian context, has been going on. And that's why it was a fascinating, entertainment format that I wanted to jump into. Yes, it does give you an advantage of no screen time. You're doing whatever you want to do at all points of time and still being entertained. A lot of people had, so the kind of audio that people are consuming right now are podcasts, music, audiobooks, and there
Yeah.
was nothing from an entertainment perspective. And all three of them are entertainment, but you can't. So let's say, can you listen to podcasts for 24 hours, 12 hours in a day, or 8 hours in a day? Chances are that you may not. Some people will, and I'm saying there are going to be exceptions, but everyone who likes to be just consume content, maybe not. But you can't keep going on Insta for 4 hours in a day, right? Because you're just
Yeah.
used to consuming that content. So the fact was, nothing like that existed in audio. In audiobooks also, there's this group that says that we do not enjoy audiobooks, we enjoy books of it, and is very narrative kind of storytelling. And then
Right.
you have music. I mean, yeah, we can listen to music for a lot of time in the day, but everyone can't. I mean, there's some amount of limitations that you have with music as well. So I think audio series or fit in really well, because then you can do whatever you want. You're being entertained. You're listening. They're short stories. I mean, they're long stories but short episodes, so you can consume like almost 4 or 5 episodes in an hour, and then you're just doing what you're doing. You don't have to sit in front of a screen. You don't have to have a laptop. You don't have to have a phone. You put on the phone and then just listen to thing and get entertained and listen to some fascinating stories and enjoy it. So I felt, like you said, I mean, while it is last frontier in digital entertainment, being an age old, I mean, storytelling overall and that's why it's called storytelling. It's not story visualizing or whatever. People tell and people listen. That's essentially what it is. So yeah, I think it's a great segment. We've already seen business being extremely strong in countries like the US and India. Obviously, we're launching in more countries now. There's huge amount of interest. I've said this earlier. We have in the Indian film industry, 100 crores is a big number. We've had audio series that have literally crossed 100 crores. We are in a microtransaction model. We are not a subscription model, so people are paying as they go. Obviously, it's a freemium model where some content is free and then you pay as you go as per episode. So we're giving the user the choice to pay when they want to listen to. So yeah, by 2024, 100 billion minutes consumed, almost 200 million plus users. So yeah, people are listening to audio series and they're enjoying it pretty much.
Yeah. And I would just like to say something. I mean, from how I know you personally, I don't know whether you remember a long time ago while we were in Google, we had this leadership workshop, right? Where we were divided, we would make to take this quiz and we were divided in these 4 colors. And I remember
Yeah.
you were in that, right? I was a blue or a green, I don't remember, but you were in another group. And I think one thing that really struck me at that point was you were a part of the group that was curious, that wanted to try out new things, that was done with one thing and then move on to the other thing, and while I belonged to a group which was slightly more predictable, following processes. And I think now that I think of it, and while we just did it rather flippantly at that point of time, I think it really resonated with our personalities, because when I see your career path and your career map, I really see that sort of being validated very strongly, right? You have really explored various fields, and I think you have the drive inside you that, okay, now that I've done this and I have aced this, what next, what can I do next? So I think I'm not really surprised at the leaps that you have taken in your career. And like we've talked about earlier also, and I've seen your podcasts and other interviews that you've done, that multitasking is a default mode right now. Pocket FM lets you consume great stories while folding laundry or hitting the gym or even pretending to work. So you're absolutely right, that audio storytelling, while has existed since times immemorial, I think right now it's gaining more and more traction. And I would actually now like to address what you just said, right? That it's becoming hugely revenue generating. And many Pocket FM series themselves have hit the 100 crore revenue mark, which is no small feat, right? Um, I saw an interview of yours where you said that even when films make that 100 crore mark, oh, it's celebrated in a huge way. And now we are seeing that kind of revenue being generated through, audio mediums. What do you think, or in your opinion, what's the formula for creating stories that not only entertain, but also, very importantly, have commercial value?
I think for any kind of story to do well, right? Um, it's the essence of the story and how good the story is. With a platform like ours, one of the good things is that we get access to so many people from across the world. Writers who have such great, fascinating stories that you go and put out to the world. And um, I think if you look at the movie industry, you look at content on OTT channels across the world, or you look at audio now. I think the key is having a good story that resonates with the audience, right? And if you're able to do that, if 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 you have that right mix, then I think any story would cross any revenue number that you could dream of. So also one of the key things has to be what resonates. What resonates, and then build a story around it. So is there and a lot of people will go out now with AI and everything and say, can you go out and really find blockbusters from stories? You can, to some extent, where you actually go to understand, okay, like for example, how Netflix made House of Cards, right? They actually went and did a survey. They figured out, okay, they love political content. Who's the favorite actor for all the people who like political content? Kevin Spacey. And then they just kept going on and on with it, and then zeroed down on this show called House of Cards, and they almost knew that it was going to be a hit. But imagine if they'd not done a good job with the storyline, it wouldn't have been a hit. So I think while you can do everything, and the human creativity and the story is key to being able to build a blockbuster. So, and that's why, like, I mean, large production houses in India or across the world pump in so much money in marketing, or pump in so much money in building building promotions for their movies. But the only ones that they do well have some really great storylines, or a storyline that people enjoy. If it was so easy to make every movie a hit, you're already pumping 40-50 crores.
Yeah.
You could easily make it a hit. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah. And I think yeah. No, please go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, so there's no science to it. It's I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have a really great story, and how you execute it is the magic portion that you go out and then win the world with.
Yeah, I mean, there is so much more to it than just very aggressive active PR, right? We see so much PR happening, and yet if the content is not there to back it up, it just falls flat on its face. And I think it will be the right time to say that we actually went from content is king to content is the whole damn kingdom. Like, there is no sort of denying the fact that if you don't have great content, if you don't have a great story, no matter what you do, it is not going to work. So I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head over there. So Vineet, I would actually like to understand. We've talked about crisis. We've talked about pressure, pressurizing situations. In this continuously evolving, pivoting landscape that we are a part of, how do you prepare for the unpredictable? What is your personal framework for handling high-stake brand moments? Especially in a time where a crisis can actually unfold with one tweet or even one viral WhatsApp forward. How do you tackle it, and what is your sort of mantra in dealing with the unpredictable?
I think preparing well is most of the job. Like 80%, 80-90% of the job is preparing well for it. And I'll tell you what I mean. I think any kind, and this is an advice that I give to a lot of people now, is anytime you're creating a brand campaign or a marketing campaign, remember the fact that it could be it could land up becoming a campaign that could land up getting you a crisis because you offended someone, for example, or you may have said something which essentially does not resonate with people. So I think what I generally do with my team is any kind of key moments or key brand campaigns, I plug holes, as many holes as possible into the campaign before it goes live, right? So in and extremely, like, thinking from a super sensitive audience perspective, right? Let's say if someone's watching this and they're really super sensitive, what are they not going to like? What are they going to like? What are they going to if they feel bad about it, what are they going to feel bad about? And if I'm able to do that, and then I'm able to plug all holes, and then also then do the math, right? Okay, I'm maybe overthinking on this too much, or I'm thinking this should be okay. If I'm able to do all of that before my campaign goes on and then plug holes, I think mostly I'm pretty much well prepared to be not doing things. I still feel that people are scared to push the envelope. They shouldn't be scared to pushing the envelope. I think pushing the envelope and doing a campaign which, see, pushing the envelope doesn't mean you have to offend people. I mean, you could be doing a really bold campaign. Like, for example, I think what Volvo did with Van Damme was pushing the envelope, putting him on two trucks, getting him to do that whole stretch, pushing the envelope, doing something really unique and in a very different way. That was pushing the envelope. Like pushing the envelope in that was, in the idea was that would people understand the concept of stability from this campaign, right? That was pushing the envelope. So pushing the envelope is not always going out and saying or doing things just to attract attention or getting the wrong kind of attention, right? So when I'm saying pushing the envelope, think bold, think brave, but just if you're able to plug holes right before and see what is everything that could go wrong with the campaign and then prepare for it, then I think you're mostly sorted, because then you'll also be able to judge that campaign with an external viewpoint, right? And then if you really think, and I'll give an example. There was someone very recently who was working on a campaign on a different brand, who was working on a campaign where they were going to be using particular communities, right? And they looked at that ad from different aspects, and they realized that it was a good enough ad, right? But when they spoke to someone of the community, they said a couple of nuances in that ad were not what that community believed in, right? So just, and that was great, right? Because just changing a couple of that made that ad beautiful, and I know that it's gone and won awards. So for me, preparing that well is important. And then the after, if something does happen with your campaign or a crisis does hit you, I think then is figuring out how you handle it, right? I mean, if it's crisis for the just for the heck of it, then I mean, the tip is to wait for it to pass through. If the crisis is something that has a reason, and there's really something, and then you need to go out, accept a mistake, apologize, and move on. I think, and there are too many brands in the world, too many things happening in the world for people to be just stuck to you or your brand and thinking about you or your brand. I think if you admit your mistake and move on from it, I think. I think one of the brands in India, and I can take an example that have done that really well, is Zomato. I think they've come across with campaigns which sometimes have offended people, and they've come out and been very open about it and apologized, and then just gone and mend ways with people back again. I mean, it's not that people are not ordering from Zomato anymore, right? So so I think because they're also very honest about the fact that, okay, we accept a mistake. So I think prepare well, avoid it, and then second, if it does happen, then just go out and see what the reason is, and if the reason is valid, this tell the world that why it happened and what your thought was, and if it's offending enough, then apologize for it. And I said this only from a brand campaign's perspective. Obviously, crisis can hit you in many different ways. So this is just from a brand or advertising perspective. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I was saying, yeah, crisis can hit you in many different ways in many different areas. And I think what we need to have is a very multi-pronged approach, right? Anticipate the unanticipated, sort of try and predict the unpredictable, and yet be prepared for the worst, right? While hope for the best, you need to be prepared for what could be eventually a crisis. Because as I mentioned earlier also, the world is pivoting so sharply that what may be acceptable today may become offensive tomorrow. And that, I think, nuanced approach and sensitivity needs to be, I mean, we need to constantly evolve on that when we are working. I think it's an ongoing process. It's not that, oh fine, I have reached a certain stage and there is no more to learn. I think that is very important. Vineet, I know for a fact we've had this conversation earlier, but I think even more so now, that you've always believed in culture over process. And I really believe that fear or dread, as we talked about in the initial part of this podcast, actually kills more ideas than bad strategy ever can, right? But when you're running massive teams like you are, how do you maintain that strong cultural foundation while also ensuring speed, discipline, effectiveness, and results?
Yeah, I mean, see, I've spoken a lot about it, but I think one of the things that I've forgotten, see, culture is the foundation and process is like the enabler, right? If you look at it from that lens, then I think it's pretty sorted. Culture is how how you want your team to think, how you want your team to believe, how you want your team to um, go through every job that they're going, right? Process is more about building towards a certain set of standardization in quality, in ideation, in in pushing what you want to get to. But overall, I think reinforcing culture in everyday moments. In large teams, you're right? It's extremely difficult if you don't have processes and you just let it just all flow. Then sometimes there's a lot of chaos. While I love chaos, I also feel that a great culture also somehow enables process also, right? I mean, if you have that culture of winning together, being happy together in everyday moments, on thinking of ideas first, being brave, I think the team then thinks that way as well. It's imbibed into the team, but and also um, with process gets those defined results that you want. So I think culture helps you be a lot more brave, bold, and be innovative, and process allows you to deliver. So I think there's a great mix of that, especially with large teams, especially with large teams. But again, for me, and this is especially for me, and this is may not work for anyone else, I also feel you need to be flexible enough with your processes, especially in a
Yeah.
world of marketing and ideation and creativity. If you're not flexible enough, you can't be rigid. You can't be rigid. This is not just the way to move,
Yeah.
because then you stop letting your team think in different ways. And
Yeah.
that's extremely critical, and it's more critical in our world as compared to any other function you would see. But I think so while process is key, you also can't make it the most rigid thing that you have to always be by the book. And that's where I feel sometimes culture trumps process, right? And I keep saying
Yeah.
keep saying that. So yeah, that's my balance. And like I said, it may not work for everyone else. Some people who are
Yeah.
listening
I
to the
mean,
podcast must be thinking
might
weird,
not agree.
but yeah, but it's worked for me.
No, but I mean, I think that's perfectly fair, right? What is sauce for the goose is not necessarily sauce for the gander. We all have our own personal, nuances of how we like to work. But I'm glad that you brought up creativity because creativity is pivotal. It's of prime importance in the work that we are doing. And creativity under pressure actually I think is like making a Michelin star meal with whatever's left in the fridge, right? It's challenging, but I think when done right it can also be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So I really feel the best creative teams aren't afraid to fail, and it's resonating with what you said, right? That don't be afraid to push the envelope, don't be afraid to think outside the box, don't be afraid to be bold. um, so the best creative teams are actually afraid of playing it safe, and some of the best campaigns also come from high pressure environments. But my question to you is that pressure can also stifle creativity. And as a leader, how do you create a space where teams can actually push boundaries and not be afraid of failure and, innovate fearlessly? While I know we've touched upon it a little bit where we are saying that, yeah, don't be afraid. But how do you sort of enable that within your teams?
I mean, every time I worked across my last 18 years, and every time I've had teams, I think one of the key things I've let them be is uh, let them just think free and allow them to do what they want. And I think I'm here to, as a leader, I'm more a leader. I'm here to, figure out a way to handle the failures. I think the wins are for them. So if you're able to make the team believe that your leader wants you to really succeed and be able to succeed, not I'm not talking from a career standpoint, I mean that obviously, but like succeed in those little ideas that you do every day. If you make them believe that you're standing with them and only thing that they're going to be listening to is the success of the ideas, and the failures is something that they're going to handle. You have teams that if they start believing that, they'll obviously go out and be as fearless as possible and come up with some really great campaigns. And I'm telling you, I have awards to prove this, right? I have awards to prove it. Like, I mean, we won the first. The Cannes is sitting right here. I mean, it's right here. It's
Yeah. Oh, wow.
the first
It was like
ever.
a flex that happened.
Yeah, it's like the first in-house brand team that won a Cannes with a 9-minute film, and the world was saying that go 30
Yeah.
seconds, go 40 seconds,
Mm.
and it was done by a team which was young and hungry, and they did that. So for me, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? And
Yeah.
I've been able to do that because my team believes that I will not stop them from doing any ideas. I mean, are there going to be discussions and you're going to be brainstorming and
Yeah.
cutting off ideas? Maybe, but if there is
Yeah.
a core idea that they believe in and that is going to resonate with the brand or the product that they're selling, my team for sure knows that I'm not going to stop them from doing it. And like, I'll put my life to go out and sell it to whoever needs to. So
Yeah.
when you build that kind of culture with your team, I think it's easy for them to just go out and do what they're doing. And that's why it's important for all leaders to understand. It could be a small social media post, or it
Yeah.
could be a 9-minute film that could go and win the Cannes. I think if you let
Yeah.
your believe that what they're doing is the best work that you've ever seen, and they will get the best work that you've ever seen out. So I think that's what's worked for me.
But I don't find that hard to believe about you at all. You know, you have always been someone who's been rock solid, even with friends, with profession. I mean, I really feel that people who are working with you, under you, maybe, even above you, will know that you'll always have their back. You know, they will never feel that, oh, my creativity is going to get stifled, or, I'm just going to be cut off and I don't understand. I don't think, and I think that is the mark of a great leader. And while you say that, you may suffer from the imposter syndrome and everything, I think that is one brilliant quality about you, because I know what it feels to be a part of a nurturing team. I know what it feels to be a part of someone who always has your back, and it just leads you to be, I think, better and more brilliant at what you were doing, because somebody has your back, and I sort of envision you
Yeah,
as that kind of a leader. So yeah,
and
doesn't
I
come as a
think
surprise to me.
yeah, and for me also, right? Like I my team doesn't work for me. I work for them. So it's a very different way of how, very early in my career, and I think a few of my close friends, and obviously
Mm.
you are one of them who've seen this happen. I've had some experiences that I've said that I will never do this with my team ever, right? And and,
Yeah,
and I mean, that was their style. Their style.
yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't like that style. I mean, did
yeah.
that style work for everyone else? Maybe it did, and and,
Yeah,
and those people are amazing leaders, and I'm sure I look up to them. But like, um, there are a few things that I didn't want to do ever because what I
yeah.
saw was being done, right? And
Mm.
I think I've stuck to those. I have
Yeah,
believed in my style, and I've just stuck to it because I feel this it's not about that style working. It's about me being happy and me having fun in that style. I
yeah.
enjoy people working with me. I'm hoping enjoy it because when
Mm.
I've worked with
Yeah, I'm
people
sure
at
they do. Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
companies, and they've they've come along, and I've still worked with them, and I get some of the most amazing messages across the years. But I feel like I said, I work for them. They don't work for me. I
Yeah.
think my teams you asked me what my pinch me moment. I think that's my pinch me moment, working with the most fascinating people and working with some of the best people in the industry who've agreed to work with me.
Mm.
And I feel that has to be the pinch me moment. That, I mean, today I'm really lucky to even be sitting on this podcast because I had some great people who put a lot of efforts behind it. So I think it is that's what it is. So yeah.
It's such a beautiful perspective, and but I do agree, it takes a jungle, right? It takes a jungle for one man to be up there, because there are, like, you're being backed by a team of wonderful people. And one thing I also feel is that, I was reading about the scientific phenomena which said that there are mirror neurons, And your positivity, your enthusiasm, your creativity is actually contagious. So if you're in a room filled with creative people, even if you're not feeling your creative best, that will be sort of triggered. And if you're in a room filled with slightly, there's the vibe of the room is depressed or sad, you sort of tend to weigh down. So I think with you, I can completely imagine like a room filled with energy, filled with ideas, filled with a lot of positivity. So I think, yeah, kudos to that. And I am so happy to hear you talk about these experiences, because I think our listeners will really benefit from what you were saying, right? Your energy, your vibe, it carries, and it sort of transfers to the people around you. And as a leader, I think it's a brilliant quality to have. Just coming to the fag end of the interview, before we just get onto the fun element, the rapid fire round, inspired from Karan Johar. And yeah, you're right. I think our love for entertainment was one of our bonding factors as friends. But in your journey from, what's Google to shaping the future of audio entertainment, that is nothing short of fascinating. But if today's Vineet could send a voice note to the young Vineet, just starting out at Google, what would you say to him? Are there any pearls of wisdom that you would tell him?
Keep doing what you did, have a lot of fun, and don't shy away from the friendships. I think one of the reasons why I sit here with you today is because of the kind of people I met on the way. Let's take an example, right? And I agreed to come on this podcast after I watched one of the people I really admire, Jitu, on your podcast. I obviously am really good friends with you, and I really admire him. And I was like, there's so much to learn. Oh, okay. I'll be after Jitu. That'll be whoa. This is an absolute honor.
Yeah.
So I think I met some fantastic people across these many years of my career.
Yeah.
I've been very lucky to call a lot of them my friends, and now they're working across the world, or in India. All of you guys have been able to shape me in becoming this person from a really obnoxious idiot that I was. So I feel that I think my if I have to go back and give myself an advice, is going to be that don't shy away. I think the thing that worked for you was all the friendships that you went out, you landed up having and learning from it. So I think I credit a lot of what I am today to a lot of you, and my friends from across the world. So I think that is going to just continue and have fun. I think that's something that I always want to do in my professional or personal life. Just keep having fun, because I think there's already so much drama. I think you keep having fun, then just everything goes by a little more smoothly.
I think you're being extremely gracious for all your kind, gracious words, and I don't think you were ever obnoxious. I honestly feel you were one of the most solid, funny, witty guys, and I think you've just been able to translate that into your work. So I think that is the having fun bit of it is being. I think also being able to be yourself at work, right? If you're able to leverage and capitalize on your own personal strengths, it could be wit, it could be humor, it could just be that you like to read the news. I think they really make an impact if you're able to capitalize, and I think you've done that so beautifully, so wonderfully. But I completely agree, right? Your friendships become almost like a fraternity. We can reach out to each other after years, and we know we'll be there, having each other's back, supporting each other. And for whatever reason, maybe we were young when we started out, there was never competition or judgment or anything of that sort. And I think those kind of friendships really help you blossom into whoever you're going to become. So I completely agree. Friendships are priceless. You really need to nurture them. And as far as having fun, I think we had fun. I don't think that that was ever a problem. We've always. I don't think that was, no matter how much the drama or no matter how much the reviews and the crisis. Yeah, we still ended up having fun. We found our ways. So that was wonderful, Vineet. So much of nostalgia, so many memories. But let's just close this with a quick rapid fire fun session. There'll be no hamper. Let me tell you that. Jitu asked me about the hamper. but yeah. So just on a lighter note, rapid fire time. You can just answer in a few words or sentences. So one campaign that you wish you had worked on.
Oh, every bloody campaign that I see every day of my life. Like, why didn't I work on this? The last one, the Cred campaigns, the Zomato ones. I think internationally. I think if you've seen the Uber Australian Open campaign, I thought it was a fantastic campaign. As a marketer, if you're not dreaming about all campaigns being your campaigns, then you're missing on something. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
everything.
That's some great insight. Yeah. And like you need to be greedy and hungry, right? Not just
Yeah,
one, all
totally.
of them. Okay. A client pitch that went hilariously wrong.
Oh, agency days, almost every one of them. I mean, I've landed up, I think, because in the agency road, you were just like pitching to so many clients. I remember we walked up into a client meeting where we were pitching, and we didn't have both clients, right? But they were both auto car makers. And we landed
Hmm.
up going into the deck pitching a brand, a different brand ka deck. So in
Oh,
5 minutes
wow.
to the deck, we were like, 1 second, this is supposed to be the other guy. Oops,
Yeah.
you obviously were thrown out, but yeah, I mean, the client meetings going on, agency is like it's every second day. So yeah,
But in hindsight, it gave you great memories, right? Something we can talk about right
true,
now.
true.
That's great fun. Yeah. Okay. Pocket FM story that you would binge listen to if you were stranded on a desert island.
Insta Millionaire, I love the rags to riches story.
Oh,
I
yeah.
enjoy it. I think it's very fascinating. I love the underdog story. So Insta Millionaire has to be
Yeah. That's a good one. Okay. What's a guilty pleasure content? And there's no judgment over here.
there. I watch everything, but I mean, forget about my guilty pleasure content. I'll tell the listeners what your guilty pleasure content is. I don't know if you've told people, but you used to watch Big Boss religiously, and I know this for a fact. But you used to come and then discuss it around. Mansi used to sit very close to where I sit, and then they used to be discussing Big Boss. So Mansi, I know, used to watch Big Boss. And again, great content. It
Guys,
was content at one
I
point of
am the
time.
host, not the guest. I'm allowed some privilege. I was particularly fascinated with Rakhi Sawant and her OG just
And you
comment.
can't edit this out.
I won't. I won't. That's my promise to you. Okay. Yeah. Oh God, Big Boss. I mean, recently it's Himesh Reshamya, right? I'm really looking forward to his film Ravi Kumar. I just think it's going to be hilarious. But yeah, you should
Yeah,
watch that.
he's made quite a comeback with his Instagram reels. So it's
Yeah. Yeah. Then there's a song called Tandoori Days now. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Okay.
nice.
Vineet, this has been an incredible conversation. You've given me so many insights, so many laughs, so many behind the scenes stories, and a whole lot of marketing magic. And from being part of Google's foundational India team to shaping Pocket FM into a global audio powerhouse, I think your journey is great proof of what we talked about, right? That great storytelling isn't just about creativity, it's about understanding culture, adapting to change, and building brands that last. So thank you so much for taking out the time and having this conversation with us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. I think it's an honor to be here. I've said that a couple of times. I think it's pretty much. This is just two friends catching up. So I hope people enjoy it and don't get lost in our nostalgia
No,
conversation. But
we had a lot
I
of
think
fun. I
yeah,
refuse
it
to
was a lot
believe.
of fun, and also it was good to hear from. I mean, Mansi is also the Aditya Chopra of our world. You never see her. Suddenly she appears, has some conversations,
Yeah,
and then disappears. So it was great to see you after such a long time, and really
thank you.
excited
I
about this.
actually tell everyone, that I ghosted the world before the term existed. I really,
Exactly.
I just,
So
just
you did for
disappeared.
sure. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. It was great coming here, and I'm really looking forward to all the other conversations you're going to be having. And I know for a fact with the kind of uh, skills you have, you're going to be. I mean, not far. This podcast is going to be the number one podcast in the country soon.
Thank you so much, Vineet. I mean, it really humbles me. It really, I think, warms my heart. And if I may say so, not that I have anything to do with your success, I'm so, so proud to see where you are today. It really like makes me feel all warm and snuggly when I see you. I mean, there is so much growth, there's so much maturity. The way you're talking, just makes me just feel very proud when I hear you talk. So many wonderful insights. I'm going to take a lot of them back with me. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who loves great brand stories. And of course, follow Vineet to keep up with his latest projects and insights. Until next time, keep telling stories that matter.